We'll let it ride then. Why not? Cool. Let's see. Here we go. Welcome back, podcast listeners, to the DK Project. Zooming in today, we've got Jesse Blaze Snider. Mr. Snider, how are you today?
Very good, thank you. Appreciate
Finally
it.
catching up with you. Last time we spoke, you were driving on the Autobahn, headed for an appointment that you were maybe not on time for. I don't know. I don't want to split hairs.
Yeah, I was just sort of last minute things. It's been an interesting moment of sort of last minute gigs and little, hey, can you come help out with this and that? And everybody's kind of flying by the seat of their pants, working on different projects for the future, try to figure out how to make it through this period the best they can.
So what have you been doing during this pandemic? You've been busy. You've got quite a quiver of tools in your bag there, right? Like, I mean, you do comic books, you do the music, you do the voiceover. Jeez, come on.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of all that. In the middle of this, I released a new album called "Come With Me If You Want to Live." Which was funny. At some point, somebody was like, "There's a pandemic going on." I'm like, the album was already in the pipeline.
You know what?
I couldn't
Speaking of
make
that album,
adjustments.
I jumped
Oh,
into that album when when we initially set this up, and it comes up on my SoundCloud, and it says on there, "The Cure for the Quarantine." Um, the new album. But anyway, I'm not normally a heavy metal rock guy, and I don't know where you're classifying this because it's around the middle of the road. But I really like
it's
it.
a little mix.
I've yet to find a track that I don't like. And normally I'm a maybe 2 songs on an album kind of guy. But these are like rock and roll, man. I like it. You don't hear that anymore. It's refreshing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And, I've always wanted to be kind of the gateway to rock music because I think a lot of people kind of cut themselves off, similar to how somebody who might be like, oh, I don't like country music. Which you're doing yourself a disservice. There's just some wonderful storytelling and stuff going on in the country music. And in the rock music, there's this wonderful connection to the spirit of man and strength and bravery and overcoming obstacles and stuff. And so much of these songs, the great ones, have carried over from the 70s, and everybody knows, We're Not Going to Take It as a good example, and so many others. But we still have like a little bit of like a tendency to be like, I'm not a big rock guy or whatever. But for me, that's just sort of like a little soupçon of like the
Soupçon.
the whole musical spectrum of tools you can use. And the rock and roll embodies that anger and that power. And there are things that pop embodies really well, and things that rap and spoken word embody really well. And each one of those things can be used to great effect. So I mean, somebody described my record as like rock, blues, country,
I would,
rap.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. It's got a little bit of everything. I kind of like it. And you've got what, 5 albums out?
I think it's actually like 6 that were just like sort of re-released online. 3 like kind of different side projects. One being my solo thing, but they're all Jesse Blaze. So like, there's a side project called The Slit, which are all these like electronic dance pop songs that are really dark, and another album that I released through Image Comics, an EP called Blacklight District, and then a collection of music from my old band Baptized by Fire and my band Blaze, where my drummer died, which was at the very beginning of my musical journey, and then a couple little collections of stuff. So I mean, there's a lot of things for people to find, and for me, the most important thing for the bands that I like to listen to was consistency. I didn't like a band that had 1 or 2 songs that I liked. I was always searching for the bands where I could just put on an album and chill out and get into their vibe for a little while. And that is, my paramount goal, that I deliver something that you can chill out and get something from. And, I've been behind the scenes really after my band and doing Rock the Cradle, which was a performance reality show I did a while back. I just kind of decided to go behind the scenes and make music for movies and TV and things like that. And that was cool. And I was really successful. I got a lot of things on ESPN. But I wasn't really capitalizing on them as sort of like a personality. But I was getting the itch to play. and I missed, being in a band, which I still like. I've opted to kind of be a solo artist that I'm still putting together, like who I'm going to be playing with out here now that I've just moved to New York. But it felt right. It's all about what I have to say, and I have a lot of things to impart to people. I think there's a lot of emotions on the table, and things that we're going through that aren't being expressed in modern music, at least not to my liking. And I got a lot of things to say,
That's
so
awesome.
might as well just be my name on it.
Well, and it's in your blood. I mean, how did it all? Were you forced to play an instrument when you were growing up? I mean, obviously your dad being the musician that he is. I mean, I'm sure he didn't, strap a guitar to your hand, but it's got to be, you got to have quite the stories to tell from your youth with all the bands and everything around you. Did you tour with your dad, or what did you do?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question, because I did actually get to, when I was 16, I got to 16. Yeah, I guess it was 16. I got to go on tour with my father to Sweden, which was the only time I ever did that, but actually like be on like a, I don't know, like a three-week tour, like almost month tour in Sweden, all over, the place and in nearby countries. Huge concerts, crazy concerts. In Europe, my father is just like next level. And like, a lot of people don't know, but in Europe, their previous album prior to We're Not Gonna Take It, I Want to Rock, they had an album called You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. And in Europe, they had hits off of that record. For whatever reason, in America, it was decided that it was a good idea not to release their first album and promote that first here, like they
Really?
did with every other 80s band that was big in Europe, but they went to a new record, and that was the only record that was promoted here in the States. But so in Europe, they just kind of have a little bit more long lasting whatever, because they were around for a while as a hit making band that had a lot of songs people liked. Because they had 3 songs off of that record that were hits in Europe. I Am I Me, We're Gonna Make It, which I'm actually doing a cover of right now for diabetes awareness this year.
Oh, cool.
Uh, and You Can't Stop Rock and Roll, which is one of my favorite Twisted Sister songs. So that was cool. And I went to Sweden, and
Did you get to go
I
on the
was the merch.
stage and do the whole bit?
No, I was just the merch boy,
Oh,
but he was doing his thing. I was 16, so I was in like garage bands and stuff. I was writing my own songs and stuff, but really, not in any sort of pursuit of it in any way. But that was really cool to actually go on tour with him like that. And then, as far as like instruments, I was encouraged. I was writing songs since I was little. I wanted to play drums. They put a guitar in my hand. I didn't really like the guitar. And I only like went so far with it at the time, though now I'm like redeveloping lots of instrumental skills. Um, but you know, eventually when I became like wanted to write stuff by myself, I learned, I was like a music theory guy. So I, figured out on a keyboard how to, what I needed to do mechanically. I just had a notebook that was like, okay, these are the chords. And I would bang out what I needed to bang out. But then I would go and I would meet with my co-writers, people who I would have recording this stuff, and they'd be like, Jesse, you got it like bang, 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 bang. Perhaps bang, 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 bang. Like, and I was always like, that's way better. And there's just such a richness of, the same way, there's so many options to write lyrics and write melodies. There's such a richness of choices to make musically. And I just wasn't as passionate about that to really get deep into all of like the choices that I had, because the choices were almost like too much for me because I hadn't spent a lot of time with it, and that wasn't really like my go-to thing. I wasn't like just always needling around on the guitar. I was like doing it, trying to work out things for the thing that was my passion, which was writing melodies and lyrics, and because you can write a fully formed song without any drums or anything. You just hear them in your mind, you hear it, and then you got to go figure it out after the fact. So this was like me going to figure it out after the fact. But everybody would always bring so much more to the table in the collaboration when I had them recording. I was like, how is it that I'm going to say you didn't do any writing here? You totally did writing. And if that's the case, I'm just going to collaborate with people, and I'm not going to be the guy trying to figure out what I should be playing on the guitar, because it wasn't fun for me. It was always like really hard. It would take me a long time. I would like sit there, it was like doing homework, and I'd be like writing the guitar for my songs. And I was just like, this sucks. I'd rather just interact with somebody who I love, who's like just as good as I am at making melodies and lyrics, but with their guitar, and find better stuff. So I just, from that moment on, I mean, I have a few songs in my catalog that are just, written by Blaze Snider. The majority of my stuff are all collaborations with just dozens and dozens of brilliant people now. Because
you'd call yourself a musician or a drummer if you were to pick your instrument? It's the drums.
I love the drums. When I write, it's crazy. I mean, it's a crazy thing to say, out loud, but I mean, it's just the truth. I mean, these days I channel, like the songs just kind of like come into me. And the biggest thing that's been coming into me for forever, my whole life, was drums. I would just feel these drums in me, and I can play the drums reasonably well. I'm just not like particularly trained, so there's like a lot of fundamental stuff that I can't do at all. But when I have to translate the rhythms and stuff, that's usually the one thing that I'm best for, and the most important thing, because all the melody writing really kind of falls apart if it's not supported by the rhythm that I heard in my mind. So if I can't get the rhythm that's underneath it, the undercurrent of how it goes, that's really like a big thing. Like I had a really hard time. So many of the original songs of Baptized by Fire, which is my first band, they're a lot more heavy metal than they were meant to be, because they were meant to swing. But my guitar player at the time, Omar, he just I guess he just never listened to any music like that. So when I was trying to get him to do Juggernaut as like, he was just like, okay, I got it. Like, I'm like, no.
Too fast.
He's like, dot, 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 dot. I'm like, no. Dot, 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 dot. Like, and he's like, dot, 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 dot. No. Swing it. Like, so, for me, and that was like so much of like working with as many people as I did, because it took a while to find the people who had the tools to mix genres, because there was certain sort of like drumming approaches or whatever that were very, unique to a certain thing. And when people would do that different drumming thing, it would be like, oh, this song sounds so weird. But I really want to be able to incorporate all those feels, because it's just the different vibes that the drums give you, the different tones that you can get from, different keys, different octaves.
Sure.
I like the dynamic, to really give a lot of range in what people are experiencing. Bands like Faith No More, which is a really interesting rock band from the 90s, were inspirations to me. People who were doing interesting things like Rammstein or, Frank Zappa in certain ways, just being able to give us something a little bit more unique sounding.
So have you done anything with your dad, like album wise or anything? Have you recorded anything with him?
Yeah, at this point we've done plenty of things together over the years. I mean, lots of performances together. I'm really proud. You can go online there's a great performance with me and my father and my son Grayson. So you got 3 generations of Sniders singing I Want to Rock on stage. It was for the Ultimate Jam Night for a friend of mine who passed away, David Z. And they do a fundraiser for him every year to raise money for teaching kids music.
Wow.
And that was a really cool one. It was funny when that experience happened, when we lost David, because David's got a brother, Paulie, who's a great friend of mine. And Paulie and David, I used to play with them in the clubs on Long Island, in the East Coast, in Long Island, Manhattan, whatever. And, they're brothers and they used to play together. And when David died, it was really heartbreaking, because I wasn't going to get to see the brothers side by side. They used to have a little 3-piece band. It was just the 2 of them next to each other. It was just so like heartbroken. I was like, what? You mean no more ZO2? They used to have this thing that they would do at the beginning of their concerts where it's really cheesy, but it was just charming and fun. And they would go, we are ZO2. And they would start their show. And I was just like, oh no, you mean no more ZO2? Like, that's the worst. That's so tragic. So it was really cool for me and my dad to be able to go down. I think it was the first fundraiser they did for, and in David's memory, perform. And I was just like, any opportunity I get to play with my dad, I got to take advantage of it.
Yeah,
so we've got to do that on TV too. on my family's reality show. We got to perform a song together.
How was that? The reality
Great.
show. I don't know that I've seen it. It's Growing Up
Oh,
Twisted, right?
it's really great. The rumor is that Gene Simmons got us canceled.
Too much competition, huh?
I don't put it past him, but who gives a shit now?
This
Yeah, it
was
was
a
great.
while
We
ago,
loved it.
right?
We had a great time doing it. Yeah, it was like at least a decade and change ago now that we did it. You know, people remember it fondly. I got a wonderful family, and it was nice. You know, we all are producers. You know, we all work on stuff all the time. So you know, we were very much in cahoots with the producers to sort of figure out what the stuff to film would be. But I mean, so there's a little bit of like, you know, creation there, but largely the creation was just sort of like organizing the things that we do already,
Mhm.
all in like a few weeks so that we could shoot them. It was like, okay, cool, and can you schedule that around here, and hey Jesse, maybe you
Oh,
can
I
do that,
suppose.
and you know, do baptism. Yeah, so it was just kind of like, you know, but it was pretty much a real look into our life, and the things that people tend to think are were like we made up or whatever were actually totally legit. The things that people think were legit were things that were fabricated, which there were only a few things that were fabricated. But it's always funny to me. Everybody believes that this guy would basically shortchange me and be like, "You don't deserve to be here. You're just D. Snider's son." Like, but that was something that we set up with the producers because they knew that there was like, you know, at least some amount of like bullshitters online who would occasionally be like, "Yap, yap, yap." You know, people have no perspective on me as a person or a musician. So the reality is that's never happened to me in real life. In real life, one, I'm too genuine and nice of a person, I think, generally, for anybody to think that that's a good way to approach me. Because I really am generally pretty kind to everybody. So, you know, like to take it there is just like to like, why are you going to be grumpy with the guy who's nice? You know?
Yeah, right, right.
If anybody really
Kindness.
felt that way, I would usually be in cooperation with them if they went about it the nice way. So I don't think anybody's ever had to be
How
a
many
dick if
seasons
they
was that on?
feel. What's up?
How many seasons was that on?
Only one. Like I
Oh,
said, I think the Simmons man got us torpedoed, and we only lasted the one
you
season. Our ratings weren't great because they didn't promote us hugely, and the network was so in love with the show, and it was really good. I mean, it was a really like good, heartwarming show. We're proud of it. You know, I have people who still watch it. My daughter still watches it all the time. She loves it. I mean, it really is just my brothers were fucking hysterical. I mean, they're just both genuinely, naturally funny, and my family's fun. And we do interesting things, and we stick together. We love each other, and like, you know, who doesn't want to see that? You know, people
what
get
do
up
your
on.
other brothers do?
Well, my brother Cody, he's a filmmaker, brilliant filmmaker. Him and Shane actually wrote a short film called Fool's Day because Shane's a comedy writer and producer and a lot of things. He's actually a puppeteer as well. He did a really cool puppet Shakespeare show in New York that got like a 5-star review, I think, in
Wow.
the New York Post. And then Cody, he's made multiple short films that have run the circuit. One based on one of my comics, and one that he wrote with Shane, called Fool's Day, and that one really broke through big. He won a lot of awards with the first one, and then like even like 10 times as many with the second one, and became like the it director in Hollywood, and has been directing lots of commercials and pilots and things like that. But a feature version of his short film Fool's Day is in the pipeline. Miramax or New Line, maybe, I don't know. I'm bad with names, but yeah, I'm really proud of him. Margot Robbie's attached, and they've
Wow.
just been trying to find their male lead for a little bit, but the script's great, and my family's so talented. My sister also, she's in the fashion industry, making like her own like individual you know, pieces through Instagram. She's kind of like you know, an Insta queen, you know, whatever you want to call it, and one of those things with big following.
Are you guys as tight as you lead to believe? Like, are you still a pretty tight family?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when it comes down to it, we are as tight as can be. At the same time, you know, practical reality gets in the way of that sometimes. You know, right now I'm in New York all by myself. Most of my siblings are in Los Angeles with, a fiance and a girlfriend, and, getting different things together for themselves. And then my parents have been in Belize, although they're back visiting the States right now. But they've been in Belize for like the past 5-6 months. So,
Living down there?
yeah, they have a home there, a beautiful home there. That's really like the Snider family estate, like where, when it's not being used, I can go down there. It's a beautiful place. My mom is really, she's the most talented of all the Snider family members. And I think everybody in the family would agree. And she has just made wherever we live, every Christmas, just like the most beautiful thing. I was just like, our home is just always so beautiful. And she helped them design the home that they built for themselves in Belize. And it was just gorgeous and fit for like, a good like 3 families can like comfortably hang out there, and just a pool right on the beach and volleyball. And just, it's wonderful. I mean, it really is.
All it's cracked up to be?
The Belize.
Yeah.
I mean, for my dad, the areas of Belize that people are usually associated with, that's not where they are. They're at a place called like Palo Santo or something like that. I might be getting the name wrong, but it's really off the beaten path. And it's amazing. My dad's had friends go down there and they say, you're like a different guy. What is this? And what it is nobody knows who he is. And he he just loves that he's anonymous. They don't know. And like, there's like one person on the island who knows who he is, but annoys him. Like, there's a few people who have an awareness, but they're cool, and he's got like, the right friends. But there's like one person, and all of his other friends on the island are always trying to like, oh shit, Steve's coming. Like, get T out of here. He's gonna make him uncomfortable. That's the only guy who throws my dad's energy off. But it's amazing. He's been writing out there. He's a great writer, and he's been wanting, for years, he's really wanted to change over into screenwriting, and he's had various little bits of success here or there. And he's just been feeling more motivated than ever, that like, I love being a musician, and I did that though. And I want to write. I'm like, I'm an old man, and I want to sit and write some books. So he's, but I mean, like, but he's feeling that like genuinely, like, like I've done that stuff, and I kind of would really like to chill and be creative. And I'm proud of him. He's been writing some cool stuff.
Wow, that's cool.
Doing an interview. I have 4 children of my own now.
Wow. What's the age ranges?
11-year-old who's knocking on my door right now. 3-year-old, my other daughter, who's my youngest. She's about to be 4. I'm trying to get her to stop aging. And then 2 boys in the middle, 6 and
Goes
8.
Fast.
Or 5 and 8. Yeah, it does. I mean, like, on one hand, I'm kind of like, grow up so you can be my best friends. And then on the other hand, I'm like, slow down.
Oh, they need to feel old. Mine are all old. Well, I've got a 14, a 19, a 20, and a 29. And it's like, just poof, 1 minute they're 11, next minute they're looking for car keys. It's crazy. Yeah. Are you have them there by yourself all the time?
Oh no! Right now, I'm my ex-wife Patty's at work right now, so I'm hanging with the kids. He's working, and and then she has the kids, when I'm working. And I actually like, I kind of like moved to back to New York in like a stumble, and have had to initially like make my initial living situation plans that then changed, and then I found myself just kind of wanting to find a place really close to my kids and not being able to find a spot. So I've been kind of held up with a couple friends, and then just like, I'm with my kids so often. So I'm at my ex-wife's house a lot, and we're still good friends. Thank God.
Wow. No doubt. 4 kids. That's a handful. So,
yeah.
So moving on, what, now we're talking comics. Now you're into comic books. What, how did this come about? And I mean, wow, I've got some friends who are into comic books, man. It's next level stuff. People are serious about it. How did you find that was, something you could do and excel at?
Well, it's interesting. You really unlocked a deeper answer than I've ever given on this. But, largely I would credit so much of my desire to write stories to role-playing games. I used to play D&D occasionally, but I used to play a game called Rifts. all the time. A really, really fun game that's like a post-apocalyptic Earth, that has like high technology and magic combined. I'm doing an interview, honey. I'll be done in a little bit. Ask your sister. I told her she has to help you while I interview. It's really it should be added to the curriculum of every school, because what role-playing games teach you, and I mean like pen and paper, dice, role-playing games, your traditional kind of games. It just teaches you problem solving. You're given a list of skills. This is your character. This is what they do. These are the powers or abilities they might have, or the skills that they might have collected. And then the person who you're playing with, the GM, the game master or dungeon master, whatever, he gives you the parameters in which you're under. Here's your circumstance. You're hanging from a cliff. All right, I got a rope on my belt. I grab it and I lasso the thing because I have the lasso skill. But within the context of this very simple sort of thing, so I'm turning into something juvenile, is a lot of very, very high level decision making. Quick, there's a decision that needs to be made. What am I going to do? What's the best thing to do? And that is just the greatest for every mind on the planet, to be given an excuse to make a jumble of decisions, to be given, here are your assets. What can you do with them?
Yeah.
And that is the miracle of the role-playing game. And as I got really just excited about like so many of those concepts and interested in like being my own GM and like writing these stories, I started kind of working on a book. Well, first I wrote a short story. I wrote a short story called Remember Me Dragon. It was just this really kind of dope short story about this dude coming to like fight this dragon that had like killed his whole family and killed him. And he was just sort of like, you remember me? Like the guy's like, nope, I don't remember you at all. You're one of many that I've murdered. And it was just like this cool kind of cliffhanger. It was based on an image that I saw that I really liked, of this dragon about to get this guy, and he's just standing his ground with the sword. And you just don't know, like, does he kill the dragon? Does he not kill the dragon? It's, create your own ending. But that short story really excited me about writing stories. And I eventually was like, I had this whole idea for this book called The Survivor. And I wrote the first chapter, and then I wrote the second chapter, and then I just got stuck. It's like stuck. Like I didn't know how to proceed forward. And I was like, damn it. And then somewhere along that way, I read somewhere that they said, if you want to be a writer, you should write what you read. And then it dawned on me that the one thing I read was comic books. I read books, but not like, I wasn't a huge book reader. I was like, I would get through a few books a year kind of thing. Not like some people. I wasn't somebody who was like, I love books, man. I was somebody who was occasionally reading some books. And largely it was because I felt like it was good medicine. You should read some books kind of thing. And I would force myself to read books. But I loved comic books. And in particular, Savage Dragon was like the one book that I read regularly. And Eric Larson, the creator of the Savage Dragon, he loves comic books. Like, he just loves the medium as an art form, and such a high level respect for the pillars of the artistic community, the people who built the world of comic books and made Batman what he is and Spider-Man what he is. And his love of comic books, like reading his letters column, and because I used to read that book just back to back, everything. I was so obsessed. I read the first 75 issues of that comic book. I must have read at least a dozen times each, every one of them. And when I started kind of thinking about that, not only did I realize that, like comic books was the thing for me to write, but that I really kind of actually had a pretty good understanding about them and about, loving them the right way and treating them the right way, not just being a writer who's going to write comic books, but being somebody who was going to honor the comic books, because my favorite comic book was written and drawn by an artist, and so he was always speaking of the medium from an artistic standpoint, as somebody who was drawing the right things to do, the wrong things to do, the way to make a great comic book. And he is really great himself at like just the standards of a great comic book, ending on a great last page, great cliffhangers, seeding storylines through time, really just engaging with your audience in a great way, and making sure that you're always like playing with the page turn, so that the page turn you could shock people. And because of that great love that I had from Eric Larson, I think I was really, really that much better at doing it. And also, I wanted to be an artist originally. I switched into writing somewhere along the way because I had a teacher who I didn't really like. So I became a graphic artist, and like I still do graphic design on like Photoshop and stuff like that. I was art-minded myself, and then I was really more into it for the writing. But then I had like a teacher, that I studied, who was the perfect lesson. And that just brought me to a place of always being really in cooperation with the people that I work with. And I think it's allowed me to make some great work. But, that was it. And I would say, comic books came from my dad. My dad was a huge comic book guy,
Really?
not as big as I became, but he read comic books big time. But he was always he had a really difficult time selling his collection because he had all these holes. Like, he wasn't like committed to going to the store every Wednesday. That was me. I worked at comic book stores. I was a Wednesday warrior. New comics are out at the store, and I do that again now. I just started reading again recently, and I don't read that many books. But like every week, I go to the comic book shop and I pick up a couple books.
The comic books are going to die off because nobody, just that whole printed medium is just kind of going away. Newspapers, real books. I don't want to say going away, but everybody's going to electronic. Put it on a Kindle or put it on an iPad And can you get the same effect of a comic book if you're electronic?
Yeah, I don't think so. Not for me, at least, because I think what's coming back, and if it's not already back, it will be coming back with a vengeance, is community. And, to get together, the way I want to approach so many of the things that I'm doing in the future is, concerts connected to comic conventions. And, at the convention, it's awesome to have a physical thing to get signed and be able to pick up, the cover that was only available for the people who went down to that show and saw you guys in person. And that stuff means something at a certain level. So right now I'm working on this anthology magazine that's going to be one part like a heavy metal magazine where it's, comic books, but we'll also do photo things and poetry if we find somebody who's great. And then a lot of articles that are on the craft, the artistic craft, but very well rounded, all different sorts of pursuits. And then articles on the love of the craft, where we can find great movies that nobody's talking about, great music nobody's talking about. There's so much underground things going on now. And there are people who know, and I'm just trying to collect like a whole bunch of these people so that we can, get out the information. And, I'm thinking of it like a website, but really in my heart, it's a magazine, and I'm going to print it, and we're going to print it in cool little chic ways that'll be fun. Because I really do believe that physical something means something.
Yeah.
If there's any merit to the idea of grabbing a crystal and there being some resonance in a crystal, then there's resonance in a book. There's resonance in all of the printed word and all the things that's there. And I'm somebody who believes, spiritually like that. And I believe that thing, holding many pages of art in your hand. It's one thing to be able to slip through the phone. Oh, yes, I've got an infinite thing of art. But to actually have this special item that contains the physical experience, I don't know. I believe in that. I don't feel like that's going away. And I'm somebody who really loves toys and whatnot, but I don't think I'm different. I do think that when it's the right item, people leave the band's concert that they want with something. Maybe it's not a CD, but they leave with, and to leave with something of value that if you may approach it that way. And I want to make sure every copy of the magazine has a poster in the center, things like that.
Old
school. Give so much value. Yeah. And we've lost that, where it's just a nice communication with the community of people who love art and a smile on our faces because we're so grateful we have it.
So what do you, well, number one, how's the collection? What kind of a pile of comic books have you amassed over the years?
Well, I got rid of my my original collection long ago, other than I have 2 long boxes filled with just some of my absolute favorite things, favorite graphic novels, some books that I got signed, all the issues of Savage Dragon, like I said, one of my favorites, and a few different special books, signed by some of my heroes, which are all like just really great writers, most of them.
Yeah.
I'm a writer. I appreciate really great writers, and so I have a lot of prized kind of possessions. I have a signed Stan Lee Marvel annual report from the years that I had a stock in Marvel before they went bankrupt, and some things like that are just
Nice.
cool little items. And then just a few things that are just books that I love that I can read over and over and over again that are like the best comics. A lot of these I've kind of like my long boxes have gotten less full because I'll pull them out and I'll be like, oh, take this, and then I never get it back. But Batman, The Long Halloween, which is like the book that got me into Batman in the first place. It's like such a great comic book. There's so much, man. The comic book medium is just amazing. It's just rife with so much beauty and so many great creators doing great collaborative works. And there's just gems and gems. And then the also just the process of comic books. Like this is interesting. I don't think I've ever said this in an interview, but it's very, very powerful and profound, to me. As a child, I've just always been an idealist and an altruist. And when I looked around the world, I was just sort of like, what's the deal, man? Like, where is the process that is slowly weeding out the wrong answers and getting the right answers and bringing us to a better place? Because it's like, even if, like people could say like, oh, well, everything's partisan. Not everything's partisan. Republicans, you want to breathe fresh air? Yeah. Democrats, you want to breathe some fresh air? Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's clean the air. So where is the system that's just going, well, we're not arguing about this and we're not arguing about that. There should be some mechanism that's forward moving and always constantly improving the system.
Right.
But it's not there. But it exists in comic books. And it's such an interesting thing because these characters within Marvel and DC, and there are other companies who have now gone on to have a similar model where they own some of this intellectual property, and various creators are brought in to put their creative stamp on it. And over the years, what has been created, the tapestry of things that have been created, where in order to properly thank the creators of Batman, you have to thank like 24 people to really like appreciate the fullness, and like really the films have not done justice yet to what is in the comics. This rich tapestry of creation that is there. And there are so many people responsible. It's just, and then this guy came in and he looked at what the other guy did and he was like, all right, let's get rid of this and let's amplify this and let's add to this and add to this. And just, they keep making it better. And that is the glory of the comic book medium. And even in a continued metaphor, the artists themselves. Talk about in the Renaissance, these mother effers weren't forced to be cranking out 7 pages a week for, Marvel slave masters who need an issue every single month.
Right.
Nobody draws as much as these artists of these past, almost a century now have been drawing. They have been drawing daily, perfecting the craft. And that thing where it's like the 5-minute mile, once that bar was broken, like then there was more people who could do it. What you could do yesterday as far as detail and things, it's like, I mean, some of these guys take 2 months and they're doing what, but some of these guys are doing a monthly book with detail, the likes of which nobody ever thought possible.
Man.
But because of the previous guys who proved how to do it and refined their techniques and taught the previous techniques, and these guys were studying them from a young age, and it's beautiful. I just find comic books to just be the richest artistic medium on the planet because you can see it. You can
love
just
your
see
comic books. I
love it. I love comic books, and I really just want to see the day where they're appreciated as much as they should be, because just the power of art and of being able to see into another person's perspective and see the world a little bit the way they see it through their art. I just see so much value in it. And
you got your own though, right?
Oh yeah, well I produce my own now. Like the album Blacklight District, we produced a whole comic book for Image Comics. Ended up putting it out, but my company Blacklight District Studios, we made the music and produced the comic book, and we're working on our own little anthology, like I was talking about, called Blacklight District Magazine, or as of now, it's called that until I decide that I'm going to change the name. But I've just been like putting together how I'm going to do this stuff for a little while. But I produced comic books for my friends at Four Horsemen Studios, who are the greatest toy sculptors in the business. They've got their own line of toys called Mythic Legions, and I was really happy to produce, some content for them, to give the story to their figures.
Oh,
And we
nice.
got Greg, who's the producer and writer of Disney's Gargoyles and Star Wars, Clone Wars, and he did the basic baseline for it. So one day they can maybe do an animated series based on it, which would be cool. And I've written for Marvel, I've written for DC and Disney and Pixar and the Muppets and lots of different stuff. But it all frustrated me in different ways. I was always just feeling like I wasn't able to make my best work because the system was getting in the way. And even like recently, I was trying to do a bunch of short form stories for Heavy Metal Magazine. And I was putting together all these great teams for them and stuff. And I literally had one of the editors who I met for the first time at New York Comic Con when I was signing for the first issue of Heavy Metal's humor magazine called Softwood. And so Softwood #1, I have a story in there with my buddy Steve Kurth called Food Fight, which is really great. And she was like complimenting me on how I had put together all these great teams and she wasn't having to do so much work. And I'm just like, months are going by and like nothing's happening. I was so excited about doing all these short form things with all my different like friends of mine that I had who I wanted to work with and people who liked me and, liked my vibe. And, I was just kind of like, all right, what do we want to do? What's fun?
Right.
And all this great stuff. And I'm like, you know what? If you're not going to do it, I'm just going to do it myself. So that's where, where I've been at recently. But I'm getting ready to actually pitch Marvel on something. I got a really good idea I've been sitting on for a while, and I just started talking to my buddy about it this morning, and I think I'm going to throw my hat back into the ring.
Nice. Because right now you're primarily doing, well, and if that's not enough, the comic books and the music, you're doing a lot of voiceover stuff too, right?
Yeah, well, voiceovers have been a very a consistent bit of my life. I started hosting. I was hired out of college by MTV at I guess 19, and I spent like the first like 5 years of my professional musical career and comic book career hosting shows for MTV and AOL. But I had long hair. I was like very much like a sore thumb kind of rock and roll guy. So at a certain point, I kind of ran out of places. Like all the casting people knew who I was if they needed me. Like jobs were plenty, and I decided to go to voiceovers, and I went behind the scenes, and that became my biggest thing. Like I'm probably one of the most prolific voiceover actors in my age range, just from the sheer types of jobs that I have done and the range of jobs that I've done, because I've worked in every area of the field, like even doing some video games, but I've done like really high profile ones like Call of Duty and Final Fantasy, and I was up for a lead in one of the Disney animated series that still hasn't been produced, but if I know Disney, it's still on hold and a possibility for the future one day, because they take forever to move these things forward sometimes.
Yeah.
And and I did a bunch of animated type stuff and a few little bit of acting things here and there. I prefer being behind the scenes is really the thing. I mean, that's why so much of my music going behind the scenes and making music for movies like appeal to me.
Yeah. What is your favorite genre then in the voiceover world? Your favorite genre in the voiceover world? What do you like doing best?
Narrating, and I'm really proud to say that I hit my 175th episode of Food Paradise. Wow. 149 episodes, my lucky number, with my great friends at O'Malley Productions. We've been doing it for like 6 years now. And we just had sort of a big break because the show kind of moved around. We were on Travel Channel. We got moved to Cooking Network, or Cooking Channel. And then now we're on Cooking Channel and Food Network. And Food Network is where we belong. And Food Network's like the big one, and we've been actually showing up in the ratings, like our new episodes of the last season that we just recorded, which took a while for them to air. But I think another season of Food Paradise will be on its way shortly. I'm happy to say, which I love doing that show. And narrating, really, that's my favorite. I like to impart information.
How does that work then? They record it all and then you go over the top of it? Like, I don't know that
Yeah,
side of the business.
our our show is a little bit different than a lot of these shows because they tend not to have very much intermixing with the narrator. The narrator is kind of like this disembodied voice, not present in the establishment kind of thing. But the way we do it, I'm way more of a presence, which is why it's such a fun show and why I think people really enjoy Fruit Paradise. If you've ever seen it, it's really just enjoyable. You know, it's a lot of silly, terrible jokes, but I know they're terrible and I deliver them in fun ways. And, you know, it's just a lot of fun. You know, really, it's like, oh man, good food and goofing off and enjoying some food. And we have such a good time doing it. Our writers are really great, crafty, and, you know, good with the turn of phrase. And I'm good at, you know, turning a phrase. And we just have a nice collaborative thing where from the get-go they kind of saw ways to kind of get me to be able to interact with the chefs and for them to be able to sort of shoot their stuff so that it still kind of seems like they're talking to me and I'm talking to them. And so our show has that feel of like a more direct connection than like, it feels more like a hosted show than it feels like a narrated show,
Okay.
which is really cool. It makes our show really special. But in general, you know, just I used to work for Smithsonian Channel a lot. I was like their young voice. I did a show that I loved doing called Trashopolis. I did a few seasons of that, and another show called Museum Secrets, which I really enjoyed. And you know, that's really my favorite: imparting cool information to people and opening their minds to all the cool, you know, stuff that's out there. It's like, do
Yeah.
you hear this story? Like, you know, I'm very much. You know, we're kind of taught in America a little bit of like a close your mind to other cultures kind of thing. Like, oh, they're all high on peyote or something. But I've come to really disagree with that and really be much more open to the grander consensus of things. And there's just so much interesting things to know in the world, you know, or
Sure.
interesting possibilities. So being a part of passing on information that I think is interesting is really cool. I've got a show that I'm attached to right now called Phantom Time, and it's all about how a major ruler, king back in the day, rewrote history and got away with it. And this mathematician kind of figured it out,
Really?
and it's mind blowing. I was like, oh my goodness, I need to be a part of this documentary. Literally right now, the thing that's hanging up Science Channel from picking it up is it too legit? Like,
Oh,
it's
really?
very hard. It's easy to argue with like Ancient Aliens, so it's like, oh, it's just some fun we're having. Bigfoot, oh, fun. This is like, yo, look what happened. You can change. Like, stuff is real. Like, but it's cool.
Wow.
I hope that,
But you got
yeah,
it all put together. You're just waiting to get it green lit.
yeah. Their pitch reel was great. I did the voiceover for it. You know, just like, I think for free. You know, just to help them out, so that they could go pitch it. Or I don't know, maybe they paid me a little bit, but I don't think I would have charged them normal prices or anything for
Right,
you know,
right.
for a future gig. I think I was just helping them. So I can't remember because some of my other friends will, you know, pay me for similarly, but you know, they'll just throw me a little bread because, you know, they appreciate that I'm what I do is has some real value to it.
Yeah,
You
right,
know, but
right.
other people, it's like, I know they don't have the money, so I'm not asking them for money to, you know, to do whatever. I'd rather just see them succeed, and maybe I get an opportunity at a job. You know, it's
Yeah,
always
for
better.
sure. But yeah, that's a key to to business, is knowing when to press and when not to press. Because I've run into that a little myself. I know we had talked about it last time we spoke. You know, I've been in the business now for a little while and still fledgling, but it's always interesting to hear when someone's excelling at it and you know, and knocking it down. So that's cool. You've been at it for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah,
I
a
mean,
long time.
19, yeah, in a world for Cybertron. Yeah, want more teas? Get America's favorite pizza, Pizza Hut, now online. That was my first like big one. And
Oh
then
yeah.
I was the voice of Stop, and I was the voice of Cheetos, and so I mean, everybody knows my voice whether they know it or not. And then for a very long time, for like 4.5 years, I was the voice of Kia Motors. It's buying a Kia is one smart move. It sure. I've been having psychic premonitions that they're going to bring me back for Kia. I hope it's true.
He is coming
Uh,
back.
we'll see what happens coming back. But yeah, the commercials are great just because they pay the bills really great. I mean, really, there's just some good union deals for some of these TV commercials that still exist. And if you get on one of these big campaigns, you know, like from McDonald's or Burger King or, you know, gas stations, whatever else, it's, you know, it's a big gig. I mean, there's only so many of those gigs, and
Yeah.
that's really, you know, I could probably be considered one of the more prolific voiceover guys in, you know, in my age demographic, just because I've worked with every major company, on many of which at long length, and then, you know, plenty for, you know, a little here, a little there, a little there. I mean, like, it's crazy. I sent my resume. I'm like, I have a part-time job at a spiritual shop, largely because I wanted to study all these things, stones and stuff like that I like. So, and I was looking for a part-time job, so it drew me to it. But I sent her my resume because, you know, she asked for a resume. And I'm like, you know, I didn't want to not send you anything, but this is my resume. It doesn't really apply. And she literally thought I was making it up. And she, like, because it's just like 3 pages of just ridiculous crap I've done. I mean, just like, I mean, like, my voiceover list just goes on for
Right.
days. I mean, different names of TV shows, different names of television networks, many of which no longer exist. You know, different names of brands and products, and you know, just one after another, and then different video games, and
She's wanting to
so
know
many.
if you want a $12 an hour part-time job at the shop.
Yeah, well, exactly. And then it's like, and writer of these Marvel comics, and these DC comics, and these Disney Pixar productions,
You're actually
and these
overqualified.
yeah, and then host of these shows for these networks, and host of these online internet program shows, host of these radio programs, host of these podcast programs, host of
Did you get the
host
job?
of live events. You know,
Did you get it?
over and over.
Did you get the job?
Oh yeah, I did actually. I said to her when she was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm not gonna do it." And I was like, "Oh, that's such a bummer." I was like, it really was like resonating with me. I'm like, I hope maybe you reconsider. And if you do, you know, let me know, because I really could use a part-time job right now, and this was just so perfect.
Did you give her your,
And
agent's number then? Contact my agent or my manager if this is going to work out.
no, I mean, it was really low key, but I just didn't have anything else to send her. You know, like, maybe I should have just, like, I don't know. I felt like if I didn't send that, what do I send? Like, I don't, like, former florist, 7-Eleven employee, telemarketer, like, you know, like a bunch of jobs from, like, when I was a teenager. You know, I've just been on this journey doing all sorts of things. And but she was like, all right, you know, we'll sit, we'll talk. And then and it was great, actually. We had like this great spiritual conversation. And yeah, I love my job. It's like, it's super chill job. And my boss is actually, she's been going through chemotherapy, having a lot of health problems, and I've just been like feeling good, because I feel like have in my life been made to feel like I was a good vibe for sick people, and like when people were dealing with things that were hurting them, that I helped. And so I like that I'm there. And I've learned so much about just stones, and actually, like, essential oils, and just so many different things.
And you got
And
to meet
all
a
just
lot of interesting people, right?
Oh yeah, I've been made tons of the types of friends that I would really like to have, living back on Long Island now, and not really having a lot of friends out here because I just moved out. I lived in LA for 10 years. So it was just perfect, because I was just like, you know, I just want to do like a little something, so I know I've got like a baseline bit of consistency, because with the COVID especially, it was just like extra intermittent. And, you know, now with, you know, with divorce of like two rents that, you know, I'm trying to like be able to pay. And you know, granted, fortunately I have my wife, you know, my ex-wife, helping me to, you know, cover things, but just trying to get all these things stable. And, you know, a comic book store would have been what I wanted as a child. And as a, you know, now somebody who's been following what you would call the plant medicine path, you know, walking the path of the shaman, and working with plant medicine like psilocybin or ayahuasca, which is very serious business, not like, you know, I'm a drug addict. You know, working with, you know, plants and communing with spirits the way, you know, the Native Americans have talked about in the past. You know, that's been the store that I like to go to and I feel good in, is a spiritual shop. And I've wanted to learn about stones very badly for a long time, but I'm very sensitive to energy, and I actually feel energy coming off stones. And if I go in a room with like a crap load of stones, I just feel like all sorts of things.
Really?
So actually being able to be there and like sit with stones and leave with some, like my boss has been letting me leave, like, so I check them out like books, and I'll work with the stones and I'll work with the vibrations and like feel it out, because it's all just like working on your sensitivity to electrical fields, which is just, you know, something that you can do. You just have to expose yourself to the electrical fields of different things, and you'll start to go, okay, that feels like that, that feels like this. And it's very interesting because it all ties into everything that I do, into music. You know, music and frequency in music, you know, there's only so much frequency that we can hear. Eventually get too low to hear, eventually get too high to hear. But in the middle is this sweet spot. And we are instruments. We make sound through our bodies, and everything in the universe is harmonizing and, you know, just based on harmonics and sort of, you know, vibration. And so many of the, you know, most brilliant men on the planet, you know, scientists, you know, said all is vibration, all is sound. And understanding the vibrations of the universe, the baseline sacred geometry that forms all things, because all these rocks, they're formed from the sacred geometry of the universe, which is just based on the 5 platonic solids. There's only so many, you know, kind of baseline shapes that make up everything. And when you get down to it, there's just very simple meanings for this stuff. And as human beings, we've complicated things with language and description, but so much of our language is just degrees of things. And there's a lot of like pure truths to shapes and sound and color. And that's the language that these shaman have been, you know, trying to commune with for a long time. Or with, like, you know, if you're like a Christian person, when you're having like one of those experiences, I've been saved by Christ, I've seen the light, you know, they're connecting to this source of sort of simple information. And I really do believe that if we learn that stuff, that we can get to a better place of building better, you know, technology and tools, and finding better ways to govern ourselves and better ways to heal our minds through, you know, better psychiatry and better medicine. And I just really want to know, and I believe that it's out there. So learning about nutrition, learning about alternative medicine, and that was my path to healing my body. I suffered from chronic pain from the age of 30 to kind of just recently. I'm finally getting off over the chronicness of it, and now, you know, I have intermittent things that are bothering me, but it's not chronic anymore. And that chronic pain journey, because I really didn't like so many of the answers that the medical field was giving me, which was like painkillers and medicines for different things. You know, I just had to start studying my health and studying my nutrition and what I was eating, and so many different things. And then acupuncture and acupressure and different sports medicine there's also different types of massage. There's all different types of chiropractic. There's osteopaths, and each one of them does different things and has merit. And it really takes a while to go down that road and learn what you need to learn. But I was able to save myself and unlock the problems that I had in my body, which came from being hit by a car when I was 11. And a lot of them, I came to find out, so much of it was my emotional state, the things that I learned from these experiences, which caused me to sort of make some changes that became physical in my body. And that's what you learn on the spiritual journey to health, is that your physical health is just sort of a manifestation of stuff that you got going on the inside that isn't exactly jiving with you. And the only way for it to sort of reality to unfold is sort of to give you a physical symptom of what is happening.
Wow.
And based on the subtle energy of what it is that you're having a difficulty with, that will be the form that it'll take. Like, you know how, like, when they're like, choose the form of your death in Ghostbusters, and he's like, it slipped in there, I thought about the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. You know, whatever, we are subtly, through the choices and traumas that we're deciding to take on, making ourselves sick. And then the thing will sort of keep plaguing us until we can unwrap the emotional problem that's associated with it. And that's kind of the big disconnect between the modern medicine and the you know, ancient medicine, you know, Eastern medicine, that we don't have the component of, hey, you have to mentally fix this as well. Like, you know, you have to try to figure out why you did this to yourself, you know, because there's a conscious and relatively intelligent reason. And when you get to the bottom of that, that's like, you know, people go to Peru and have ayahuasca and they, you know, get over their alcoholism.
but it's because Mother Ayahuasca, the spirit of that plant, helps guide them to the lessons they need to learn to discover why they're doing that to themselves. And that's the thing, all of these sicknesses we have, it's just like, why am I doing this to myself? And like, you know, for me, it was learning to take care of myself.
So what you're saying is that being a rock star, a comic book writer, and a successful voiceover person didn't teach you anything but a $12 an hour job at a spiritual store has led you down this path. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yes, I couldn't have said it better myself.
I've got an amazing resume, but this $12 an hour job changed my life.
Nailed it. No, you know, this has just been kind of the kicker. See, the really actually super cool thing about the spiritual store job, and this I kind of saw, trusting my gut as it came up, I suspected that there was a possibility. I've been really wanting to teach spiritual stuff for a while, and I didn't know it for certain, but our store has a wonderful back room where they do yoga. They'll sometimes have different people, you know, different types of energy healers and you know, sound healing and really cool stuff that, you know, has a lot of merit in reality once you look at this stuff and understand the basic principles of what they're trying to achieve. You know, like with the sound healing, you know, hitting a certain nice firm bang of a real good octave, you know, there is power to that. These things are worthwhile. So with the space she has in the back, I have an opportunity to go and start doing some of the things that I want to do. Some of them being music related, where I want to teach people how to sing, how to write their own songs, because I believe that people can write their own mantras that can really empower them in their daily life. And it's simple and easy to write songs. And I have like some real good messaging and some good examples of things that you can take with you. And that's one thing that I'd like to do. And right now I'm studying to get my herbalist license with my buddy Jack Stannis, who's an herbalist. He's a real young guy who had like a very similar spiritual awakening to me with the plants. And as you know, he's been a practicing herbalist for like 3 years now, and took me out to the woods and just got me super hyped up on all these things that I was already kind of learning in books and experiencing myself on the plant medicine path. And I just was like, wait a second, getting my herbalist license just means I have to go out into the woods and learn about the plants, like by like being in the woods, learning about the plants. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, that sounds like fun. I'm like, I'm totally into this. I can take my kids out to the woods with me, and all I really have to do, like, I mean, I'm getting like the stuff so that I can get the thing. But to be an herbalist, you know, to be able to say that, oh yeah, I'm an herbalist, you know, and that I have, you know, that license or degree, whatever you want to call it, I think will just give more credence to, you know, my work with the spiritual medicines, because the plants have a lot to offer us. You know, things are here on this planet are a lot more complex than we've, you know, our modern American thought gives it credit for. And so much of the spiritual like conversation has been a very religious conversation for a long time. And the religious conversation has kind of framed what's actually going on the spiritual side of things in all these very, I don't know, cult-like kind of ways. You know, like where like people are drinking the Kool-Aid, no, you must be saved, and like, and losing the real message of, you know, the other side, which is just oneness, and you know, we all are drops from the same ocean, and you know, it behooves us to come together. Because, you know, we are one, and you know, what upsets you upsets me, and whether I know that right now in this moment, that is the message of the other side of like, these things are ripples. You know, you want to make peace with your fellow man, you want to love your fellow man, and all of the
We could use a
great
little bit of that right now.
Yeah, we do so bad. And I just posted something like that the other day. It was a thing of like, do no harm to the others. It was like, do what thou wilt, but don't hurt anybody else. You know, or no, it was like a dozen different religions saying, do unto others as you would have done unto you.
Nice.
A dozen religions, same thing. Do unto others would have done unto you.
I'm in
So
Minnesota. We're the epicenter of problems right now.
Yeah, we really are, and it's so much of it is really loud, angry, kind of mean-spirited conversation, lots of bullying. And it's funny too, because it's a lot of like the bullied becoming the bullied. But as they say, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there, and right now they're, you know, kind of raging. But I really believe that there are so many more level heads in this wonderful nation of ours, and that the level heads are going to prevail, you know, and we're not going to You know, maybe some of us have our hands on our pistols, but they're going to stay in the holsters. And we're gonna wait, because we don't want things to descend into a nightmare.
Oh,
Sure, of course, revolution
it
can happen
has.
anywhere. Do we want that to happen? No, we don't. Let's not do that. We don't have to.
It's
We
crazy.
know there's enough wise ones here for us to
Hmm.
not descend into madness because of a few assholes. And I really do feel like, you know, across the board, like, you know, not everyone is bad in the government. Many of them are, you know, but not, and the, you know, in every neighborhood, there are good people. So this is it. In every good neighborhood, there are bad people. And in every bad neighborhood, there are good people. And that's what we have to remember. And we just have to keep searching out our good people, knowing that they exist everywhere. There are good people in the Muslims, and there are, you know, good people in the Christians, and there are good people. It doesn't matter who you might think is not a good group. You know, the KKK has members who are going, I don't know about this whole ideology. You know, that's what we need. Like it's true, because
Yeah.
we have like this thing is like the KKK. They're all these evil blood. They're all these misguided people who
Right.
have found their energy, you know, put their energy into this thing. You know, so much of what's drawing them to the KKK is unity and brotherhood and love and
Yeah.
coming together on a thing. It just so happens that they're focused on something that's really not so great. And,
Right.
you know, when that manifests itself into other things, that's awful. But you know what? The fundamentals of why they wanted to in the first place proves that they've got humanity in them to begin with. They're
Right.
trying to connect with the other pieces of humanity that they feel close to. So, and when you're dealing with stuff that's such moral, ambiguous, people are people, and people are always struggling over different things. Yeah, some people are caught up in the thing, and they're, you don't want to call them a psychopath or whatever. At a moment's time, you know, they might be just driven, and they're not thinking, and they're not being conscious.
People are so
But I
quick to
believe that
react.
people are conscious more than they're not, and that people are being driven to consciousness when they're in those situations, driven to see the light and the error in their ways. You know, if there's anything that I've learned, it is that there is just an energy that is very simple and very intelligent, that feels all of us and is essentially just feeling the pattern of everything. And because it feels this great pattern, this web that all of our consciousness makes, it's able to subtly affect and, you know, control in subtle ways our journeys and get us on the, get us to the places that we need. You know, whether you want to call it your horoscope or the moon or whatever, but there are mechanisms urging us forward and helping us to grow. And, who am I to judge anybody on their path? I don't know all the details. You know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, you let the universe or God sort them out, and it's my job to love you. It's my job to see your great depth and goodness that you can be, and hope that that's the person who arrives in front of me, and not believe ever that I'm going to meet somebody who's a piece of crap. You know, I like to meet everybody thinking everybody in this universe has a great day and where they're awesome. And I'm only ever meeting anybody on their best day where they are able to just be great, and I can be great with them. And if they're racist, that means we're not going to talk about black people. You know, if they're, crazy, we're not going to have that crazy conversation. We're going to have a stable, you know, if they're depressed, we're going to have this conversation about ice cream. And really, you know, just Tony Robbins, you know, if you want to talk, so many of the great people who have been good leaders for us, about mindset, you know, having a positive mental attitude. You know, my dad's always been huge about that. Positive mental attitude, it's so much of the game. And you really just, the more you can put both feet into that positive mental attitude and go, you know what? I am creating my own universe, and what I want is this. And I am not going to sit here and wait for it to come to me. I'm going to take the steps in the direction of what I want, and I'm going to trust that because I am vibrating with the energy of this idea of this thing I want, that the universe is magnetic, and it's going to send things of similar variety to me simply because I am vibrating there. And that is like the laws of manifestation, which are, you know, so many of the, like, you know, laws of the universe. If you can celebrate in the knowing now that anything you want can be yours. And, it just requires the mental fortitude and step in the direction.
I would agree. I would agree. I think you're sending the right message. That's for sure. Especially in this climate, we definitely need to look at things a little differently and try and put a positive spin on things. We got to wrap this thing up, man. We're running long. I think we've come full circle here with.
We covered a range.
Oh my gosh, we stepped on all of it. We're gonna have to get back with you and get a little more in depth on some of these things. But you had so much to fit into the podcast. We got a long way to go, and I didn't even know about the spiritual enlightenment. That's a whole other game.
It really is. I mean, and that's really been my bag for the past bunch of years. Because it's funny, my mom, she had said something to me at some point, like while I was going through some of these things, where she was like, Jesse, it's like, it's just like, she didn't say I was a loser, but there was sort of like this like indication of like these things that you're going through at the moment. This is just like, this is what losers deal with. And it was really interesting.
On it.
Well, yeah, because it was really interesting because aesthetically, I understood exactly what she said, what she meant. And I realized actually that I was like, oh my God, like you did this. Well, and I mean, she didn't do it to me. I did it to myself. But it's sort of like the things that I was taught to fear became the things that I essentially had to walk through to get over my fears. Things like, not being, being an adult and not exactly being financially independent for a minute because I got myself in like trouble. Oh no, like, you need to like borrow money from a friend, like for a moment, like, well, who hasn't had to do that here or there?
Yeah.
I've been financially independent more than anybody in my family besides my dad, and my mom, for most of my life. I mean, like I bought houses and sold houses and, I produced Blacklight District myself. Like really the reason why I don't have money is because I've spent so much money on things that I've made, just sort of believing in myself and believing in things. And then, sometimes circumstances happen like divorce and whatever else. And you're in circumstances that you never dreamed that you would be in before. But divorce and, this sort of like, even like being kind of homeless, having to stay with a family member, having to stay with a friend for a moment in time, like not being the independent generator. Like I've always been the guy who's like, yes, I've got a couch you can sleep on. Yes, I have an extra room. Yeah, no problem. The person who can reach out to other people. And then at 37 years old, Jesse, like you're like in the depths of these things that you don't like. We don't want any of these things. These are the bad things. But really, and I mean, it's just relatively fresh for me. Like the last like earlier in the year was like sort of the end of this for me. Getting out of this thing, and I'm like about to get into my place now. Finally, like everything's really changing, but the journey was that I had put so much fear into the idea of like being homeless or being broke or having to go back to doing construction and like having to, I was famous and now I'm not, like all this like weird energy about all these things that I was worried about. And what we focus upon manifests itself. And I was somebody who was kicking the can down the road. My body pain was due to I wasn't living my life genuinely. And going on the spiritual journey to fix my body, so much of what I had to learn was just how not true to myself I was being, and that I had kind of gotten into my marriage for the wrong reasons. Basically I was trying to be honorable, and I thought it was like the right thing to do as opposed to was what I really wanted to do. Ooh. And then trying to be honorable carried me forward for 15 years. And then having to come out of that, I had to face all the fears that I didn't want to face in breaking up a traditional marriage, not being the perfect oldest son, not being the great husband to the parents that I told her that I would be, making my father-in-law disappointed. I mean, I love him so much. That was a big disappointment for me. The idea that, oh no, I'm totally going to make him upset. I broke his daughter's heart. Like I wrote a song about it. A funny one of just like my father-in-law is straight off the wall because I broke his daughter's heart. And the CIA hopes I go away because I'm tearing their shit apart. It's just about like being divorced and having time on your hands to like look up conspiracy theories and stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
But really that was the journey. And like when I was talking to my mom, I was just like, wow, Mom, I'm like, these are the things that I was taught, or the things I really kind of wanted to avoid. And I put so much fear into them that I literally put myself into a situation where I would ultimately pull them into my life in the worst way. But I can remember the first time I had to sleep in my car, and I was smiling about it, because I had gotten to the point, as I was dealing with this really difficult situation I had put myself into, where I was at peace with it. And I was just really grateful that I had a place to park. And then I had a few of the other things that were going on that were the right things, the jobs that I needed to start getting me the money that I needed to be able to afford a rent, so I could put a down payment down, and to be able to help my ex-wife. And like, because it just went from like, I had a bunch of money and I could do it, to I couldn't.
Yeah.
And then to really go like, just nothing.
You got to take a look at
Feel
it.
like, but I'm still rich and it's okay. And I see that I'm on the path and I know everything's all right. And I'm coming out of this, and I'm going to be so much better for this. And there are so many people who are homeless right now,
You know,
and I know what they are dealing with, existentially. And even though I'm at peace with this isn't cool. I shouldn't have to ever be in this situation, and nobody else should either. And it really like empowered me to want to give back more to, and I want to work with homeless veterans, and I'm starting to like connect some dots there, and a whole bunch of people. There's so many people who need help, and it just really like coming to terms with being grateful for even in like the worst situation. And that was the lesson for me. I had to come to this bad place to be grateful through it, and really just be at peace.
Ironically, I was at a wedding over the weekend, and one of the guys that was there, I've known him forever, and he's choosing to live in his car right now, because the family's solid. They totally would
I
help.
get.
But I sat and talked to him at great length at the wedding, just because I'm like, your stress level, your wants and needs, your life is at a basic a point as it can be right now. Now, granted, there's a lot of people that don't choose to be homeless and would love to have a car to live in, but he has his car all customized, and he's like, this is what works for me. He's done it for like 6 years, he said, but you can just tell he's just at peace. He's like, I am
all the money that he would normally be putting into a place, which is just have become absurd amounts.
Yeah.
He's just living an enjoyable, comfortable life.
Yeah. Well, I looked at the van. It wasn't anywhere that I would live, but single dude,
I need a space. Like for me, I'm more of a space guy. And for me, it was very difficult. Like Blacklight District is a name that's all about a space. It's about creating a space for yourself where you're comfortable. That's my Blacklight District, the place where you hang your posters and you light the room the way you want it to look, and you feel comfortable. And, so for me, it was very hard initially, as I was like changing up situations. Like, cause I was with a girlfriend for a minute. So like I had a place, and then I set myself up where like I really didn't have anywhere, and I was just kind of like had to kind of crash with some people who loved me while I figured my shit out, and then sometimes just didn't want to be a burden on the people, and feeling like a burden. That's the thing too. Like that's one of the things I had to get over, because there's people who love you and they're happy to take care of you, but then at the same time, eventually it just became this thing where I was like, I'm so at peace. Like it's like 11 o'clock at night or whatever. I'm tired. I'm just going to sleep in my freaking back of my car. Like I'm like, and I'll be on with the show tomorrow. And like, and just whatever. It's like, sometimes in this world, if you're betting on yourself and trying to win and doing the best you can, and you fall on your face, I mean, hey man, like it happens. Like keep going for it. Like that's what you do. You just like, what do I pack it in? Like, no, I'm like, I'm working on it. I know I'm good at what I do, and things have just been a little. Yeah, exactly. I learned, and I'm so grateful. I mean, I've been a grateful person since I started working with the medicinal plants. Like they really woke me up. But the richness of my appreciation that I really find myself feeling, and my real strong desire to want to give back in the right ways, and knowing that I can finally, that I really have some things to offer, I think, to people. It's just wonderful. And, me and my friend Jack are going to be taking people on herbalist walks on like the weekends. and I'm like, be turning the spiritual shop into a cool little money-making thing for me to be able to do like spiritual stuff and be able to pass on information that I like and get paid to do it. And so that's awesome. Things work their way out. And I really believe that now. And I just see everything just connecting for me in so many ways. And, you know, and I'm on my way into a house. So, you know, on it goes. And I'll be fucking kicking ass better than ever financially in a short period of time. But everybody ebbs and flows. And most of the people are freaking dealing with what I'm dealing with times 11 and whatever else at this moment in time. So I'm just so grateful to have, you know, the support that I do and be, you know, have the various abilities that I have and be able to do as many things as I can.
Hell yeah. Well, listen, man, I love the story. We're gonna have to circle back with you and dig a little deeper and find out where you're at with the spiritual guiding in the woods.
You got it. Whenever I get a chance, we can set it up. You know, I've been really kind of feeling like so much of my, like what I'm supposed to do to help the plants is reframe the conversation being had about conversations with these plants, you know, taking these plants, you know, because people are having very strange experiences and kind of coming back occasionally and like freaking people out.
Right.
But the plants are, they're very much like consciously, you know, they're like, they tell you like they're here to help you. They want to help us. And we've become a little disconnected from where we come from, you know, and we come from the plants, come from, you know, this earth, and they are connectors to that consciousness of the planet and sort of all of our consciousnesses together, you know, all of the similar love we feel for our families and all that, you know, that is like an echo of vibration, fatherly love, motherly love, you know, and it's all just governed by the planet, like a beehive governs the energy of itself, or a flock of birds governs the energy of itself. And we've lost touch with that connectivity of each other. And it's a wonderful journey, and I have so many cool stories to tell of it, and I'm very happy to demystify the experience, because it is being used to great effect now all over the planet to help people overcome amazing things. And actually, if you check out, and it's a great way to end, check out my new album, Come With Me If You Want to Live. It very much is my spiritual journey. You know, you've already been listening to it, and you could follow it along. You know, there's a song called Get Smart, which is really all about Mother Ayahuasca and her telling me that I had to do what I was here to do. I had to make music and do it unapologetically. And just so much of the different legs of my spiritual journey are on there. And you can find it wherever digital music is sold or streamed or whatever. Just type in Jesse Blaze, Come With Me If You Want to Live. And as you heard it right here, it ain't bad.
I like it, man. That's awesome. I thank you for the time. I'm
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.